gathered because we have something truly special lined up here tonight. When we started to kick around ideas, putting together this group, this panel, it came together so quickly because of the enthusiasm that these men showed for sharing this stage with each other tonight and with you tonight. The 49ers' rich history of quarterback brings us to a first-time meeting tonight of 4 Pro Bowl quarterbacks spanning more than 4 decades. They took uniquely different paths to NFL stardom, and they are here tonight. We've already seen one of them making that cameo. 7-time Pro Bowl selection, 3-time All-Pro, 2 scenarios. It's Steve Young. He didn't want me to say first ballot 2005 class Pro Football Hall of Fame. Steve Young. Also, 4-time Pro Bowl player, including 3 consecutive Pro Bowls with the 49ers. Before getting his shot in the NFL, he was a star in the Canadian Football League and the Grey Cup MVP, Jeff Garcia. Of the 2005 NFL Draft. He was determined to remain with the 49ers when he could have easily left a couple of times. He became a 3-time Pro Bowl player, won the 2020 Comeback Player of the Year award before walking away from the game on his terms, Alex Smith. Starting quarterback for 1 full season. He's already been selected as a starter for the NFC Pro Bowl team. He set the franchise record with 4,280 yards passing in a single season. Sorry, Jeff. He set the team record for passer rating at 113. Sorry, Steve.
There's the bulldog on the pant leg of life right here. He says, I still got him by total yards. I'm not giving it an inch.
And Alex, he challenged your club record for most consecutive pass attempts without an interception, but he decided to cut you some slack. Ladies and gentlemen, Purdy. Who fully embraced this idea of quarterbacks over generations coming together here tonight. Each of these men got to the NFL in different ways. They overcame different obstacles to get here. And Steve, I'm going to start with you. When you look at this group here in front of you, what do you see?
I see warriors.
Be nice, be nice.
No, but I do, I see warriors. The NFL has a way of sifting any kind of, in some ways, emotional weakness that you have and forces you to the sidelines. And the people who stay on the field, by definition, not necessarily have the strongest arm or the fastest guys. It's the warriors that find their way to stay on the field. And so, and I see each one of you. I knew Jeff because he followed me. I know Alex for many years. I got to know Brock now. Everyone has a different story, but everyone was on the field. And the fact is, to stay on for the 49ers. You're a warrior, and I'll share the stage with you guys any day.
Yes, you did follow Steve, so here you're going to follow him again. How difficult was it to follow a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Well, absolutely. I came into the 49ers being a fan of the 49ers, growing up in Gilroy, watching Joe Joe through the 80s and 90s, and then obviously Steve. I mean, I followed Steve when he was at BYU, seeing what he did in the Holiday Bowl. Followed him at the USFL, watched him with the LA Express, and then obviously coming to the 49ers and continuing the legacy and the tradition of winning. I mean, more than anything, 49ers were going through 2 decades of greatness at that time, and you know, he continuing that at that position. Now, me following that, I felt like there were some big shoes to fill, obviously. And I thought coming into the 49er organization, I'd have a great opportunity to learn from one of the best, to play the game, watch him, see how he does it, try to emulate him. Hey, be on his heels, classroom, all those things. Unfortunately, that situation came to an abrupt end, but it opened up an opportunity for me to step on the field and, hey, learn through the trial, through fire, through air, through all the ups and downs. And that first year was a struggle, but we got it turned around. And I think more than anything, like Steve said about being a warrior, the grit and the tenacity that you have to have, it's represented in a different way being the quarterback. We don't get to go out and hit people. But that being said, you still have a certain toughness physically and mentally to you that allows you or forces you to exceed what anybody else's expectations are of you. My expectations of myself were that I'm going to step in, I'm going to find a way, and I'm going to lead this team, and I'm going to get my guys involved, and we're going to find a way to be successful. It took us a couple years. Finally, we did it, but that being said, it was a great honor for me to be a part of the 49er organization, a dream come true, and to follow one of my idols like Steve Young. Woo.
The position you play, the franchise you join, a lot of pressure. How much more pressure when you're the #1 overall pick and you're not even 21 years old yet?
Yeah, it was unique for obviously to take what Jeff just talked about, you know, that there had never been a franchise that have a Joe and Steve. Like that had never happened. You know, and then you throw like, we just heard Jeff set the franchise record for yards, right? Like, so like he had carried it on, and all of a sudden to be the #1 pick, and as a 20-year-old, those were things that I had never dealt with, right? Like I had one college scholarship offer. I had been flying under the radar my entire life, and now all of a sudden, you know, huge expectations put upon me, and you know, I felt like I had to be Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Peyton Manning, right? Like as the #1 pick for the San Francisco 49ers, and it was a lot. It was a lot, and I felt like I had to be perfect, and I struggled with that for my first few years, walking onto a field on eggshells, right? Like trying not to make any mistakes. Like I got to be perfect. And it was every day at practice, it was in the meeting rooms, I felt like that, and kind of became my own worst enemy. You know, as anybody can imagine, you try to do anything, let alone play quarterback as a rookie or a young player, that's certainly a recipe for a disaster. And it wasn't, at the time, it wasn't like something that got talked about a lot. You know, again, I didn't get to play with a veteran quarterback early on, and so there wasn't necessarily that resource there. So I struggled with it for several years before kind of found my way out of it, thankfully with some, you know, certainly some teammates and coaches.
And of course, Brock, your situation, very unique in its own way. It seemed to happen so quickly. You know, the last pick in the draft, you're the 3rd string quarterback during the offseason. You beat out the 2nd string, but then you go back to 3rd string. Then you become 2nd string and then 1st string after injuries. It happened so quickly. Did it feel like it happened that quickly? And what was your mindset when they told you basically, get off the sideline, get in the huddle, and now you're the starting quarterback for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I feel like it was... My rookie year, I feel like there was just so many different stages. There was, you get drafted last, you're trying to come in, you know, make an impression of the coaches, trying to make the team. The preseason, then I made the team, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm P squad quarterback, and then Trey goes down, so Jimmy's in, I'm back up. I backed him up for 13 weeks, and it wasn't until week 13 I got in. And then the last, I think that was like 8-9 games that I played, felt like a whole nother season. So it was just from one stage to the next. It was probably the longest year of my life, to be honest. But, it was a great year just in terms of learning all the different roles. Trying to make the team, how can I be a great backup and serve Jimmy and Trey, to then getting thrown in and having to win and start. And so I learned all 3 different stages in, under 6 months. So a crazy year, but was thankful to learn a lot of things from that. And I think it's set up, this my second year in the league.
Did you have certain mechanisms that enabled you to handle that pressure that comes with being starting quarterback for the 49ers?
Yeah, I would say when I got thrown in, at that point, man, we were winning, and all that was on my mind was how can I continue to keep this thing going? How can I continue to do my part to get our team to a Super Bowl and win? And I think going into my second year is when the thoughts of, man, I'm starting for the San Francisco 49ers, and then you got the standard that Joe and Steve had set, and all these guys up here. And I think that's when, those thoughts start rolling in of, okay, like there's a standard here and I have to, live up to that standard,
So Steve and Jeff, you guys had to wait a few years after college before becoming full-time NFL starting quarterbacks. And for Alex and Brock, it happened, your rookie season. So let's delve into that a little bit. Steve, when you were traded from Tampa Bay to the 49ers, did you know that you'd be backing up Joe Montana as long as you ended up backing him up?
Let's dive into this. Let's dive into this.
All I remember, and then sweet Bill Walsh has passed away, so he can't refute this. He's a great man, and everybody said he was a genius. He was. It was all of that and more. And so much of the league, and especially the 49ers, are built off the back of what Bill did. So I want that to be clear to everybody, because the story I'm about to tell you might diminish some of the things that I just said. But he had pitched me because I was dying in Tampa. It was rough. It was if you need a lot of help to be good in the NFL, and I don't care who you are, you need a lot of help. And when he offered the chance to come, he told me that Joe had 2 back surgeries, and just had the last one, a week ago. It was in the off season, and he doesn't think I don't know how he's going to recover. And I said, well, I'm not happy to hear that. That's a terrible thing. But if there's an opportunity like that, I'll take it. I'd love to jump in. And so I jumped in, and I just remember the first OTA practice or training camp practice, I went out early and got dressed, and I'd never met Joe my whole life, and obviously admired everything he'd done, and so right, the last guy comes running out, the practice about to start, and Joe comes running out, and the first thing I think is, he doesn't look hurt. I turned to Coach Bill, and I'm like, Bill, he's not hurt. And he did this to me many times through the years, but he went just like, he's famous for this, like. So off we went. And then that was the day that Ted Walsh, the old equipment manager, thought he'd play a joke on me, because I didn't have cleats that day. And so he gave me a pair of cleats, I put them on, and then he told Joe, hey, I gave him a pair of your cleats, so go out and make fun of him. And so Joe, the first time I met him, I said, hey Joe, nice to meet you. He goes, nice cleats. And I looked down, like, oh. It was a mess. It was a mess, and it stayed a mess for a long time.
Well, oddly enough, Bill Walsh played a huge role in you, Jeff, in your getting an opportunity. There was a quote after you guys played, after San Jose State played Stanford. Bill Walsh said this. Bill Walsh, the head coach of Stanford, said this about the San Jose State quarterback. That Garcia kid, he has some Joe Montana-like things on that field. And did you even get tryouts, NFL tryouts, after your senior year at San Jose State?
What was that?
I didn't even know what the combine was.
It's like, I remember the pro scouts came to San Jose State and they're telling us, hey, on Thursday or whatever day it was, the pro scouts are going to be here and they want to measure you guys and they want to time you in a 40. And I'm like, why? I mean, I had no idea back then. You know, but that being said, no. Brock was Mr. Irrelevant. I was more irrelevant because I didn't even get drafted, looked at, signed, nothing. But it's okay. It's okay. The little train still made his way up the mountain. And, you know, coming out of, I remember that game. We played Stanford my senior year. It's a shootout, back and forth. We end up losing the game, but Bill makes that comment and in the Mercury News or whatever it was back in the day. And fast forward a few months, I'm playing in the East-West Shrine game at Stanford, and Bill is walking around practice, and there's scouts, there's everybody out there. And my dad's out there at practice. He's like, hey Jeff, there's Coach Walsh. Why don't you walk up to him and tell him thank you for the kind words they said. So I walk up to Coach Walsh and I'm like, hey Coach, Jeff Garcia. He's like, I know who you are. And I go, hey Coach, I just want to thank you for saying those words about me doing some Joe Montana like this. I mean, that was my idol growing up, watching the 49ers, watching Joe. And he goes, hey, you deserve it. And this weekend, you're going to be the MVP of the game. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. All right. So I go back to my dad. He's like, so what'd he say? And my grandpa's out there. So my grandfather played in the East-West Shrine game back in the 1930s. And we were the first grandfather-grandson combo to play in the East-West Shrine game. He was a farm boy from Kansas State, but that being said, he took the train out to the West Coast to play in the game. So they had him as an honorary captain. He was out there at practice with my dad, and my dad goes, well, what'd he say? And he goes, he told me I'm gonna be the MVP this weekend. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, the game happens, we're down 28-7 in the fourth quarter, and I throw 3 touchdown passes, run for a 2-point conversion. And all the media who votes on the MVP is rushing up to change their MVP choice because it's late in the game. So I end up being co-MVP with an East player, quarterback as well, but we won the game. And that created a relationship with Coach Walsh. Now granted, he's a San Jose State Spartan grad himself, so there was that, affiliation. But when I wasn't drafted or wasn't signed by an NFL team, I actually went to Coach Walsh and I said, hey, look, you have a ton of coaches around the National Football League. You believe in me. Do you think you could say anything to these guys and maybe there's a chance? He reached out. I got one call from Steve Mariucci, who was the quarterback coach of the Green Bay Packers at the time, under Mike Holmgren, who had coached with Bill here in San Francisco. And Coach Mariucci, granted, no cell phones, I didn't have a pager, I didn't have any of that. I just happened to be at my apartment, San Jose State apartment, when the phone rang, and I answered. He's like, hey Jeff, this is Coach Mariucci from Green Bay Packers. I was told to give you a call by Mike Holmgren. And he goes, look, we're not gonna bring in anybody. We have a guy by the name of Brett Favre, we have Mark Brunell, and we have Ty Detmer. We probably will bring in a practice squad quarterback in the spring and then release him. That happened to be Kurt Warner. So he goes, if you have an opportunity in the CFL, he goes, I played in the CFL for a cup of coffee. I was with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He goes, if you have a chance to go to the CFL, which Calgary Stampeders had my rights, go get some experience. And if it works out, then down the line, you may get a shot. Well, that was my only opportunity, was to go to the Canadian Football League and back up a guy by the name of Doug Flutie, who was one of the greats, like you going into backup Joe. I mean, in a different way, the CFL is like going into backup Joe, but it was Doug. I mean, one of the greatest I ever played in the CFL. That being said, I kept in touch with Bill Walsh. And at one point, the World Football League is going on, and Bill goes, hey Jeff, I'm trying to get you with the Barcelona Dragons. You're Mexican, that's in Spain. You know, that relationship that I maintained with Bill actually did work out for me because when I did become a free agent in the Canadian Football League, after having an opportunity to learn from Doug for a year and a half, then start for 3.5 seasons, win a Grey Cup, Bill was now back with the 49ers on a management front office side, and he brought me in for a workout. It happened to be the 4th workout that I had with NFL teams, starting with the Raiders, Jacksonville, Miami, and the Rams, but we'd like to forget about the Rams. Who signed Kurt Warner after a brief arena ball adventure, but I had 2 offers. I had San Francisco and I had Miami who offered me a contract. And I said, well, I'm much more of a Steve Young guy than a Dan Marino guy. Plus, that was my opportunity. That was opened up by Bill Walsh, really, because they had just traded, I think Ty was backing you up. And they had traded him to Cleveland. And I think Mariucci was a little hurt by that because he had him in Green Bay. He's like, they let go of my guy. Who's this Garcia kid they're bringing back? Don't you remember talking to me, coach? I did what you said to do, go to the CFL. Go back. That really led to my opportunity to join the 49ers. Sorry I spoke so much.
I'm going to come at this with a different angle from you because, there are quarterbacks who wait their time.
Yeah.
You had it the other way where the Kansas City Chiefs draft a quarterback and he was waiting for his time. You put together a heck of a season. What's that like? You had the background as being the #1 overall pick. What it's like to be the starter when a young guy by the name of Patrick Mahomes is drafted.
I think a couple of things. One, so Tim Rattay was the starting quarterback when I got drafted. He was the only guy in the QB room that had ever played, actually started football games. And the minute they named me the starter, they traded him away. And it was like week 3, and the 2 other QBs were Ken Dorsey and Cody Pickett, who had a combined 1 start. And I spent hours and hours by myself in the film room, staring at a screen and not even knowing what I was looking at, right? I didn't even, it was such a waste of time what I was doing. I was working really hard. I put in a lot of effort and there's 0 results because I had no clue. I played in shotgun, wide open offense in college. Also, I'm under center, fullback, 2 tight ends. I didn't even know West Coast terminology. And again, and I struggled mightily. And I think fast forward a little bit, I had already kind of done this with Colin, with Cap. Certainly we didn't draft him in the 1st round, but 2nd round, and he obviously crazy talented. And I think I also realized, listen, whether we get drafted or not, or where we go, we have very little control over this stuff, and I think I found that as well. Listen, Cap and I, we didn't control that situation. We got put in it. Pat and I didn't control that situation and certainly put in it. And there was a level of empathy for me, for these young guys. I knew what it was like, how much I struggled with no guidance and mentorship. And I didn't want that on them. And so, listen, and these guys got to watch me go about my business. And in the end, there weren't any, I think that's what mentorship is. You're not whispering secrets of how to play quarterback, right? It's just they get to see you. What are you doing on Monday? What do you go do on a Wednesday? How do you prepare? What do you do after a loss? How do you handle training camp practices? How do you talk to the receivers? How do you tell that play caller, I hate that play, I don't want you to call it? All those things they get an up close view of. So and again, I think certainly my experience as a rookie was the foundation of that. These guys were young picks and they didn't need to go through what I went through. Yeah. No, and listen, I love the Sean Payton thing out there. I don't know, he was going to take him at 11 because he knew he was going to be great. When we drafted him at 10, we jumped up to get him. There were so many people out there, pundits, that thought he was this gunslinger. This would never work. He'll never work in the NFL. This was a long shot, right? And I think certainly, everybody's kind of come around at this point. No, it's unorthodox, and no, nobody knew. He made plays on the practice field, but it's practice, right? And I think the thing that definitely stood out, and everybody wants to talk about the arm angles and the no-look passes, and they're sweet, but it's the mentality. It's kind of what Steve was talking about, like that it thing. Like, he's a football player. Like, he loves coming in early, watching film. I'm sorry, you guys probably hate this. Yeah. But he had that thing, that it about it. And that was very apparent, very quickly, that he had that.
And so for you, Brock, what was more difficult, just going in cold off the sideline after Jimmy got injured, or now a full week and the entire storyline is your first start is going to be against Tom Brady's team?
Honestly, yeah, that week of preparation was probably worse. Jimmy went down and they're like, all right, you're up. So I'm in tune to what we're doing against Miami's defense and stuff on the sideline. And so when they said that I was in, I was like, all right, let's go. I'd already warmed up, and all those weeks leading up to it, I'd obviously prepared as if I was going to play. And so, when they said I was going in, it was like, all right, let's go. Got in. I think my first completion was a third down to Christian, and after I got that completion, I was like, all right, this is football. It's 11-on-11. It's what I've been doing my whole life. And so then we rolled, play the game, you win, and then it's the next week. It's, all right, the coaches, everybody in the organization are like, all right, can we roll with you for the rest of the year, And we're down to our third quarterback, and does this guy have what it takes? All those things, the questions. And next thing you know, you got Tom Brady rolling in town, and my family, you guys have probably all heard the story there, you booked their tickets like before the season even started to come to this game and watch Tom. All of that put together, I was like, man, this is it, for me, it was in the back of my mind, like, I get one opportunity here, let's see what we can do with it. And, was I playing against Tom Brady and all that kind of thing? Like, yes, his team, but it was the Bucs defense. That's what I was going up against, and that's where my mindset was at once the game started. And obviously we rolled and we didn't look back. So.
Were you upset, angry, whatever, that you lasted that long in the draft? Did you feel like, oh, you have something to prove to, I was going to say 31 NFL teams, but let's not forget the 49ers passed you over 6 times as well. So do you feel like you had something to prove to 32 NFL teams?
I mean, yes, but for me, more than anything was, dude, I just need a shot. I need an opportunity. Going into the draft, I knew that I was probably gonna be a day 3 guy to undrafted. I was real about myself. I was real about just college and my film and all that. And so for me, I was like, I just need a shot. And if I get that, I'm gonna be excited about it. And I'm gonna do everything I can to prove myself right, rather than trying to point fingers and say you guys all messed up. It hasn't been like that for my life. So that's not how I've looked at it. That's not how I live my life. And I do believe that God had me drafted last for a reason, and I'm thankful more than anything.
Do you want to be the first pick in the draft, going to a team that we're all 49er fans, but at the time was struggling? Obviously needs more help than just at the quarterback position, but it's thrust upon this young man. Or the last pick in the draft, going to a team that just went to the Super Bowl, that is stacked, that has the pieces in place to help you be successful. I mean, that's the thing about the quarterback position, is so many people want to put the pressure on that one position, but we can't do it alone. It starts with our offensive line, which I know, hey, all you old linemen out there, hey, we appreciate you. But that being said, like, there's a reason why the teams picking first in the draft and going after a quarterback is a shot in the dark. You're putting a young man in a difficult position to lead a team that has a lot of issues. And this is the most team-oriented game there is in the world, in how it is managed on the field. 11 players have a job to do. Everybody is responsible for their job. If there are any cracks or leaks at any part of that, then more than likely, especially on offense, the play is going to fail. And, you know, I was actually called to do a presentation to Brock at the Mr. Irrelevant social in Orange County. They must have thought, well, you're kind of irrelevant. This is Mr. Like, and I'm like, well, I don't really know who Brock Purdy is. It's great he's going to the 49ers, but my 6th grade kid has a soccer game that I'm coaching. Unfortunately, I can't make it. But that being said, I would have loved to have been there to meet you, to introduce you, and just, hey, like me, you're a fighter, man. You're a fighter. And you know what? They picked you last, but it didn't matter. You got picked, and that's fuel to your fire to just go out there and, hey, prove not only to yourself, but everybody else what you're capable of and what you're made of, and you're definitely doing that.
Jeff, have you ever thought about being a preacher?
I am looking for that
I'd come.
career
I'd
path.
come. Tell me what Sunday, I'll be there.
I mean, I'm coaching girls flag football. They need to hear it. Just like you, big dog.
Hey, this is such a special night that a young quarterback at Notre Dame heard about it, and he wanted to come in here and soak up the knowledge that you guys have. I want to introduce Riley Leonard right there in the, Riley, come on up. Jeff started to take my job by asking questions here. Do you have a question for these guys? Stand up.
Stand up.
If you guys could give any advice to a rookie quarterback in the league, where you can tell yourself something that you know now, looking back, what would you tell them?
Who wants that one?
Go ahead, Jeff. I mean, I'll let you.
I mean, Brock was probably the best rookie out of all of us, so he might be better equipped to answer that. I mean, man, I think be confident in yourself, right? You're good enough. I think your best is good enough. I also think it's probably going to be, this is just going to be so many cliches coming out right now, but like, enjoy the process, right? I think we get so caught up in a destination and something, and certainly it's important to set goals, but your habits make the most difference, right? Your daily habits are going to make the difference. And again, all of us, whether you're the first pick or the last pick, like the road's not easy, right? And there's going to be struggles. Embrace the struggle, right? Like you were meant to go through it, and you'll be better for having gone through it, right? And I think so oftentimes, sometimes adversity strikes, and I've been there. Like it's too heavy, you don't want it, it's uncomfortable, but you get on the other side of it, and that's where growth happens. That's where improvement happens. So.
First of all, embrace the moment. You still have one more year of college football. You have an opportunity to be the best that you can be for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I mean, take advantage of that opportunity. It's a precious, special opportunity that you have in front of you. I mean, my kids, as a 12-year-old, so Dad, what professional football team do you think I'm going to play for? And I go, none. You don't even play Pop Warner yet. Like, first be good here. Be good right now. Be good right now. Be the best that you can be right now. Everything else will take care of itself if you maximize your opportunity. There are only a few opportunities in life. Hell, I was a 29-year-old rookie, not a 21-year-old rookie. I mean, I've had hair everywhere. But that being said, you have opportunities in life, as all of us know, are very precious and few. Are you prepared to take advantage of the opportunity? Have you done the necessary work, mentally, physically, all across the board, to be prepared when that moment strikes to capitalize on it. Do that right now. Think about that right now. Then you can ask those questions about, hey, what's it like to be a rookie quarterback? Because now you're drafted in the NFL or you're signed by an NFL team. Hey, it's a precious few that get to be in that position. And you still have one more year to show that you're worthy of it.
Hey, Brock, I want to ask you, because I think Jeff's making a point around, one of the things that you have a superpower is processing. And the idea that as a young player, you jumped on the field against the Miami Dolphins and just started processing. How would you tell him to get ready to do that? Because to me, that's the thing. If you could take that quality and you would spread it around every quarterback, you'd be like so blessed. And how would you describe how you were ready to process right out of the gate?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of hits to Jeff's point just in terms of being where you are right now, playing right now, not trying to jump to a conclusion of getting to the NFL so fast. Like, there's a process to life. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays want to just skip the process. They want to get to places because they see guys where they're at and they don't want to, go through the good and the bad and all that kind of stuff. But what I would say is I played 4 years at Iowa State, so all those reps of defenses and schemes, like all of that stuff added up. Just the game prep, all of it, man. Seeing different safety structures, blitzes, you name it. All those things added up to when I did get in against Miami, dude, I was like, I feel like I'm back at Iowa State playing 11 on 11, so. That's right. Yeah, okay.
Quote Bill Walsh again. This is again about you, Jeff. He had this to say to Scott Ostler of the Chronicle in 2001. He said, when it comes to instincts and intuition and the presence and the poise, Jeff ranks with anybody who's played. He's that good, he really is. And I think what strikes me about those words, reading them so many years later, is that those are all elements of quarterback play that simply cannot be measured. So I'm going to ask each of you guys, if you're a scout looking for a quarterback in college, it's arm strength, whatever, mobility, whatever, accuracy, big, obviously, what would you be looking for specifically to think that a quarterback who's successful at the college level can make that transition to become an NFL superstar?
I'd want to see through somehow to test as adrenaline runs through the body and pressure builds and expectations and the crowd yells, what is the reaction that quarterback has? Because most human beings, I'd say 99.9% of human beings, when the adrenaline flows, the pressure builds, expectations grow, your mind narrows and you get tighter and you don't perform as good at, I'm not my full self. And if you're going to be good in the NFL, and that's where the true test is. In college, I think you can get through it without knowing this. But in the NFL, it is the great filter. And I can tell you that everyone up here on this panel has an unusual knack as things build, pressure builds. Our kind of genetic reaction is that it's a calming force in a weird way. It's like you settle down. Now you can see Jeff can get riled up, but that's the thing, that if you could know that and could test that, then, because that's the part that look, you can watch him throw, you can watch him run around, you can do all those tests that can show you how that would translate. That's all important. But the thing that matters in the NFL is that when you're on the field and you now have to go process through play after play after play after play against the best athletes in the world, how does your body respond to the adrenaline that's running through you? And it's just an oddity. And it feels like if you played in the NFL very long, you passed that test. And if you knew that as a senior in college and you could go draft, if I could draft that way, I could almost guarantee success in the NFL if you had that quality.
If we're looking at a kid and considering him for the NFL, we already see that he's got a certain set of skills. But like Steve said, in crunch time, in the moment when the game is on the line, how does he react is one thing, and Steve just touched on that. The other thing is, will his teammates run through a brick wall for him? What kind of leader is this guy, not only on the field, but in the locker room, in the community? What type of person is he? Do his teammates love him? Do they want to just go to battle with him and for him? I think that's important because when you look at what we do from our position, we are really trying to rally the troops, bring 10 other guys into that huddle, inspire them, motivate them, direct them to do their best job, not by telling them to do it, but by showing it ourselves in how we approach the game, how we dedicate ourselves to the game, how we study the game, how we go into the weight room, onto the practice field. I know that in watching Steve and watching Doug, my mentality on the practice field, I don't want to see the ball hit the ground. I had a level of expectation for myself to be perfect out there. I know come game day, things aren't going to be perfect. There's going to be trials and tribulations, adversity, all the things that you're going to have to overcome. How do you deal with those type of situations? But preparing yourself to be the best that you can be, and then coming on to game day, how do you react in those situations? What's your timing like? What's your decision making like? How do you respond after making a mistake? Do you learn from it? Do you improve from it? Do you move past it? And then just like, hey, at the end of the day, this is a gladiator's game. We're warriors. How do you inspire, motivate, hey, grit your teeth and just grab hold of your partners, your family, and go to war, so to speak? That's what it's all about. And I want to know what this young man is all about. Do you exemplify that? I already know you can throw a pass 70 yards. I don't care about that. I want to know what else you can do and how you motivate yourself and your teammates.